Subterranean Strategic Infrastructure in North American Karst Systems, a multi-phased analysis of Mammoth Cave, comparative sites, and the Cold War Legacy Executive Summary. The intersection of geological formations in national defense strategy has long been a subject of intense scrutiny, oscillating between verified historical record and persistent conspiratorial conjecture. This report provides an exhaustive, multi-phased analysis of the utilization of North American cave systems for military and civil defense purposes, with a primary and specific focus on Mammoth Cave National Park in Kentucky. By synthesizing government master plans, civil defense inventories, geological surveys, and historical archives, this document aims to disentangle the documented reality of Cold War fallout shelters from the theoretical and rumored existence of deep underground military bases, DUMBs. The analysis reveals that while Mammoth Cave played a sanctioned role in the National Fallout Shelter Survey (NFSS) of the early 1960s, specifically through the stockpiling of supplies in Audubon Avenue, the facility never functioned as a hardened command node. Instead, the persistent rumors of a 50,000-person underground city or secret military access roads are the result of a demonstrable composite rumor effect. This phenomenon involves the conflation of Mammoth Cave National Park with two distinct locations: the industrial Louisville Mega Cavern, which did have a 50,000-person shelter capacity, and a private lava tube in Idaho, where the government exchanged road construction for shelter rights. Furthermore, this report establishes a comparative baseline by analyzing verified hardened facilities such as Raven Rock, Site R, and Camp Hero. By contrasting the immense industrial footprint of these sites, characterized by massive power generation, hazardous waste protocols, and thermal signatures, with the delicate, ecologically monitored karst system of Mammoth Cave, the investigation logically precludes the existence of a clandestine industrial military facility within the national park. The anomalous infrastructure cited by observers, including high-voltage lines and seismic monitors, is conclusively identified as standard utility modernization and academic research infrastructure, respectively. Part 1. The geopolitical and strategic context of subterranean infrastructure. To fully understand the anomalous infrastructure allegations surrounding Mammoth Cave, one must first deconstruct the era in which the United States government aggressively sought to militarize the subterranean domain, the early Cold War. This period, defined by the transition from atomic fission weapons to thermonuclear fusion devices, necessitated a fundamental shift in defense strategy from urban evacuation to in-situ sheltering. 1.1 The shift to subterranean defense strategy. In the years following World War II, the United States faced a new strategic reality where the continental interior was no longer immune to direct attack. The development of intercontinental ballistic missiles (ICBMs) compressed the warning time for a nuclear strike from hours to minutes, rendering traditional evacuation plans for major cities obsolete. Consequently, the defense doctrine shifted toward continuity of government, COG, and civil defense, both of which relied heavily on the utilization of underground space. This strategic pivot bifurcated into two distinct tracks. Hardened command and control, the construction of purpose-built, deep underground bunkers for military leadership and critical infrastructure. These facilities, such as the Raven Rock Mountain Complex, Site R, and Cheyenne Mountain, were designed to withstand direct nuclear strikes. They were characterized by independent power plants, air filtration systems capable of scrubbing biological and chemical agents, and massive shock isolation infrastructure. Public fallout protection, the identification of existing structures capable of shielding the general population from radioactive fallout but not direct blast effects. This initiative, formalized as the National Fallout Shelter Survey (NFSS), sought to leverage the mass effect of concrete buildings, mines, and natural caves to block gamma radiation. It is within this second track, the desperate search for public shelter, that Mammoth Cave and similar natural formations were integrated into the national defense apparatus. The confusion between these two distinct strategic tracks, hardened command bunkers versus temporary fallout shelters, forms the genesis of the modern underground base mythology. 1.2 The National Fallout Shelter Survey (NFSS) of 1962. In 1961, Amidst the heightening tensions of the Berlin crisis and the lead-up to the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Kennedy administration transferred civil defense responsibilities to the Department of Defense. The Office of Civil Defense (OCD) immediately launched the National Fallout Shelter Survey, a massive undertaking to inventory every space in America that could offer a protection factor (PCOFR) rate of 40 or higher. The Army Corps of Engineers, acting as the program manager, contracted private architecture and engineering firms to conduct these surveys. The criteria were strictly mathematical. The survey focused on the density of materials, concrete, steel, earth, rock, and their ability to attenuate radiation. The cave advantage. Natural caves, with their tens or hundreds of feet of rock overburden, offered exceptionally high protection factors, often exceeding 1,000. This meant that a person inside would receive less than 1/1000th of the radiation dose present on the surface. The blind spot. The survey methodology often prioritized radiation shielding over habitability. Engineering firms identified capacity based on floor space, 10 square feet per person, and volume, 65 cubic feet per person, frequently ignoring critical variables such as humidity, temperature control, ventilation rates, and the psychological impact of total darkness. This bureaucratic mechanism explains why wet, biologically active, and psychologically oppressive environments like Mammoth Cave were designated as shelters. The designation was a product of mathematical calculation regarding rock density, not a holistic assessment of the cave's suitability for long-term human habitation. 1.3 The geological imperative, karst versus granite. A critical variable in the analysis of underground facilities is the geology of the host formation. The choice of rock type dictates the facility's durability, dryness, and defensibility. Granite and basalt. Hardened military bases like Raven Rock, Greenstone Granite, and Cheyenne Mountain Granite are excavated in igneous or metamorphic rock. These formations are structurally competent, supporting massive excavated chambers without immediate collapse, and are relatively impermeable to water. Karst limestone. Mammoth Cave is formed in Mississippian-aged limestone, a sedimentary rock that is soluble in water. The entire cave system is, by definition, a natural drainage system for the overlying sinkhole plain. This karst topography presents severe engineering challenges for military use. Hydrological instability. The cave is prone to flooding. Water levels in the lower levels, River Hall, can fluctuate by over 50 feet during heavy rains. Structural unpredictability. The limestone is riddled with solutional voids, breakdown piles, and vertical shafts, domes and pits that make the excavation of uniform, secure chambers difficult. Permeability. The cave is not a sealed system. It is a sieve. Any surface spill of fuel, chemical agents, or sewage instantly enters the cave's water system, making the containment of a secret industrial facility impossible. This geological context is crucial for assessing credibility. The U.S. military's historical preference for granite and volcanic rock for its command centers contrasts sharply with the sedimentary, water-soluble nature of the Mammoth Cave Plateau. Part 2, Mammoth Cave National Park, the central case study. Mammoth Cave National Park, established in 1941, preserves the longest known cave system in the world. As of current surveys, the system encompasses over 426 miles of interconnected passageways. This immense scale has naturally invited speculation regarding its potential use as a covert facility. However, a detailed examination of the park's administrative and operational history reveals a transparency that contradicts theories of clandestine use. 2.1 Historical precedents for industrial use. The notion of Mammoth Cave as an industrial asset is not entirely modern. During the War of 1812, the cave was a strategic resource for the United States. The rotunda and adjacent passages were mined extensively for saltpeter, calcium nitrate, a critical component of gunpowder, when British blockades cut off foreign supplies. Implication. This early industrialization established the cave in the American consciousness as a resource repository. The leaching vats and wooden pipelines from 1812 remain in the cave today as archaeological evidence. However, this activity was extractive, utilizing the cave's natural deposits, rather than constructing a facility within it. 2.2 The Master Plans, 1941 to 1973. The development of Mammoth Cave was guided by a series of master plans, 1941, 1962, 1973, that outlined the National Park Service's vision for the site. An analysis of these documents reveals a focus on tourism and conservation rather than militarization. The 1962 Master Plan, coinciding with the Cuban Missile Crisis, this plan reaffirmed the mandate to provide exceptional opportunity for outdoor recreation. It called for the phasing out of certain surface facilities, housing and utility areas on Mammoth Cave Ridge, rather than their expansion. Infrastructure development. The plans authorized the construction of elevators for tourist accessibility, not cargo, the improvement of the historic entrance, shelter staging area, and the upgrading of sewerage systems to protect the cave from surface contamination. Construction reality. The anomalous construction activity observed by locals in the mid-20th century corresponds directly to these public projects. The Visitor Center, 1960s, the elevator shafts, 1950s, and the hotel expansion. The Civilian Conservation Corps (CCC) had previously built much of the surface infrastructure in the 1930s, leaving a legacy of sandstone cottages and trails that are distinct from military architecture. 2.3 The Audubon Avenue Fallout Shelter, 1963 to 1978. The most significant intersection of Mammoth Cave with the defense establishment was the designation of the Audubon Avenue Fallout Shelter. This is the verified kernel of truth surrounding the underground base rumors. 2.3.1 Location and specifications. Audubon Avenue is a large canyon passage branching off the rotunda, located approximately a quarter-mile inside the historic entrance. Dimensions. The passage is roughly 60 feet wide and 30 feet high, with a flat, silt-covered floor. This immense volume made it one of the few areas in the cave capable of housing a large concentration of people without extensive modification. Capacity. Estimates for the shelter's capacity varied. While wild rumors suggest 50,000, civil defense planning metrics, 10 square feet per person, and the available floor space of the usable section, Rotunda to Bunker Hill, suggest a realistic capacity of 1,000 to 3,000 individuals. 2.3.2 The Supply Inventory. Between 1963 and the late 1970s, the Office of Civil Defense stockpiled supplies in Audubon Avenue. An analysis of these supplies reveals they were intended for a short-term survival, not long-term continuity of government. Pipe item, pipe specification, pipe purpose, pipe vulnerability, pipe. Pipe dash 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 pipe dash 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 pipe dash 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 pipe dash 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 pipe. Pipe carbohydrate supplement, pipe bulgur wheat corn flour crackers. Sealed in 5-gallon metal tins. Pipe caloric maintenance, 700,100 calories day. Pipe tins corroded rapidly in high humidity. Contents turned rancid. Pipe water containers, pipe 17.5-gallon steel drums with polyethylene liners. Pipe hydration, 1 quart day. Pipe drums rusted externally. Liners were susceptible to mold. Pipe sanitation kit, SK4, pipe fiberboard drums containing chemical agents and toilet seats. Pipe waste disposal. Pipe cardboard absorbed atmospheric moisture and lost structural integrity. Pipe medical kits, pipe kit A, 65 persons, and kit B, larger. Pipe basic first aid. Phenobarbital, eye drops, bandages. Pipe sterile packaging degraded over time. Pipe radiological instruments, pipe CDV 700/715 survey meters. Dosimeters. Pipe radiation monitoring. Pipe batteries and delicate electronics failed in the damp cave environment. Pipe 2.3.3 The operational failure. The shelter initiative at Mammoth Cave was a failure of environmental engineering. The cave's constant 54 degrees Fahrenheit temperature and near 100% relative humidity created a corrosive environment that destroyed the stockpiles. The breathing phenomenon. Mammoth Cave acts as a barometric bellows. When surface pressure drops, air rushes out. When pressure rises, air rushes in. In a nuclear scenario, radioactive fallout would be drawn directly into the historic entrance by this natural aspiration, contaminating the shelter area. Decommissioning. By the late 1970s, the supplies had degraded to the point of becoming trash. The National Park Service, prioritizing the ecological integrity of the cave, particularly for the endangered Indiana bat, removed the cache. The failure of the supplies to withstand the cave environment serves as strong evidence against the existence of a sophisticated, climate-controlled military base in the same location. 2.4 Seismic and high-voltage anomalies. Contemporary rumors often cite the presence of seismic monitoring equipment in high-voltage lines as evidence of ongoing secret activity. 2.4.1 Seismic stations. The Kentucky Geological Survey (KGS) operates seismic stations within the cave, for example, Station Maka. Purpose: to monitor the New Madrid and Wabash Valley seismic zones. The cave provides a quiet environment, shielded from wind, rain, and surface traffic noise, which allows for the detection of micro-tremors. Interpretation. Conspiracy theorists interpret these sensors as listening devices for deep underground trains or tunneling. However, the data from these stations is often publicly available and used for standard earthquake research. 2.4.2 High-voltage infrastructure. Recent concerns regarding the Grain Belt Express and upgrades by Rocky Mountain Power at other cave sites like Timpanogos have been conflated with Mammoth Cave. Analysis. The NPS has actively opposed high-voltage lines that mar the visual landscape of the park. Internal power. The cave's internal electrical system is designed for low-impact LED lighting to reduce algae growth, lamp and flora. The 2007 electrical overhaul reduced energy consumption by 25%, a trend consistent with green energy goals, not the massive power consumption of a military-industrial complex. Part 3. The Anatomy of Conflation, Disentangling the Mammoth Narratives. A central finding of this research is that the most sensational claims regarding Mammoth Cave, specifically the 50,000-person capacity and the road for access deal, are not fabrications, but misattributions. Facts belonging to two other specific locations have been grafted onto the narrative of Mammoth Cave National Park. 3.1 The Louisville Mega Cavern, the true 50,000-person shelter. Located approximately 80 miles north of Mammoth Cave in Louisville, Kentucky, the Louisville Mega Cavern is a massive, man-made limestone mine, formerly the Louisville Crushed Stone Company. Structural difference. Unlike the narrow, winding canyons of Mammoth Cave, this mine features a room and pillar layout with massive structural columns, flat floors, and 90-foot ceilings. It has over 4 million square feet of space. The Cuban Missile Crisis role. During the 1962 crisis, Kentucky officials designated this mine as a shelter for 50,000 people. It was considered the largest civil defense shelter in the United States. The confusion. Over decades of retelling, the specific identifier Louisville Mega Cavern, or Louisville Crushed Stone Mine, was eroded, leaving only a massive cave in Kentucky that can hold 50,000 people. This attribute was then naturally applied to the state's most famous cave, Mammoth Cave. Current status. The facility is now a commercial business park and tourist attraction. Zip lines, tram tours, openly advertising its Cold War history and capacity, which further verifies the source of the rumor. 3.2 Idaho's Mammoth Cave, the road deal. Another persistent rumor claims that the federal government paved the road to Mammoth Cave in exchange for access rights. This event did occur, but not in Kentucky. Location. Mammoth Cave, Idaho, a private lava tube north of Shoshone. The agreement. In the 1960s, civil defense officials approached the owner, Richard Olson. They offered to build a gravel road connecting the cave to State Highway 75 in exchange for using the cave as a shelter for 8,000 people. The stockpile. The cave was stocked with supplies, which remained on a platform in the cave until the 1980s. The confusion. The shared name Mammoth Cave allowed this specific story of federal negotiation and road building to be transposed onto the national park in Kentucky. However, the National Park Service already owned the land and roads in Kentucky, making such a deal legally unnecessary and historically non-existent. Table 1, Comparative Attribution of Underground Base. Rumors. Pipe rumored attribute. Pipe attributed location. Rumor. Pipe actual source location. Fact. Pipe verification. Pipe pipe dash 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 pipe dash 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 pipe dash 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 pipe dash 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 pipe. Pipe shelter for 50,000 people. Pipe Mammoth Cave National Park, Kentucky. Pipe Louisville Mega Cavern, Kentucky. Pipe designated in 1962. 4 million square foot. Mine. Labeled largest CD shelter in U.S. Pipe government-built road for access. Pipe Mammoth Cave National Park, Kentucky. Pipe Mammoth Cave, Idaho. Pipe deal between Richard Olson and Civil Defense for Highway 75 connector. Pipe underground lunchroom. Pipe Mammoth Cave National Park, Kentucky. Pipe Carlsbad Caverns, New Mexico. Pipe famous cafeteria in the Big Room. Supplies stored in Pickle Alley. Pipe underground Pentagon. Pipe Mammoth Cave National Park, Kentucky. Pipe Raven Rock, Site R, Pennsylvania. Pipe hardened command center often used as the archetype for dumb stories. Pipe Part IV, Comparative Analysis, the NPS Shelter Network. To contextualize the activities at Mammoth Cave, it is necessary to examine how other National Park Service units managed similar civil defense mandates. This comparison reveals a systemic pattern of passive compliance rather than active militarization. 4.1 Carlsbad Caverns National Park, New Mexico. Carlsbad Caverns, with its massive Big Room, was another prime target for the NFSS. Asterisk designation, designated a shelter in the early 1960s. Signs were installed in the underground lunchroom. Asterisk Pickle Alley, supplies, food, water, medical were stored in the side passage known as Pickle Alley. Asterisk the breathing problem redux, just like Mammoth Cave, Carlsbad Caverns breathes. Park naturalists and rangers were acutely aware that the cave would draw in radioactive fallout. One ranger noted that in the event of a war, their job would likely be rounding up visitors rather than effectively saving them, as the cave would become a trap. Asterisk insight, the designation of Carlsbad was largely performative, a psychological assurance to the public that utilized the majesty of the cave to project safety, despite the scientific reality of its vulnerability. 4.2 Wind Cave National Park, South Dakota. Asterisk designation, officially designated a fallout shelter in 1966. Asterisk supplies, stockpiles for over 1,000 people were placed at the middle elevator landing. Asterisk infrastructure, unlike Mammoth, Wind Cave relies heavily on elevators for access. While this implies existing mechanical infrastructure, the elevator shafts themselves are vulnerabilities in a blast scenario, acting as potential conduits for shock waves or debris. Asterisk abandonment, like Mammoth and Carlsbad, the shelter status was quietly abandoned as the doctrine of mutually assured destruction (MAD) replaced the optimism of survival sheltering. 4.3 The NPS pattern. The data across these three sites, Mammoth, Carlsbad, Wind, indicates a consistent NPS response to Cold War pressure, asterisk compliance, accepting the designation and the supplies. Asterisk segregation, storing the supplies in specific, out-of-the-way locations, Audubon Avenue, Pickle Alley, elevator landing, to minimize impact on tourism. Asterisk passive management, there is no evidence of the NPS constructing new hardened infrastructure, blast doors, generators, to support these shelters. They simply utilized the existing natural void. Part V, the baseline of reality, hardened military facilities. To differentiate the shelter activity at Mammoth Cave from a deep underground military base, one must examine the specific characteristics of verified hardened facilities. The material and infrastructural footprints of these sites are radically different from the limestone corridors of Kentucky. 5.1 Raven Rock Mountain Complex, Site R, located in Pennsylvania. Raven Rock is the canonical underground Pentagon. Asterisk geology, excavated into greenstone granite, a rock type chosen for its extreme hardness and lack of permeability. Asterisk infrastructure. Asterisk square footage, 600,000 to 700,000 square feet of office space. Asterisk power, The facility has massive internal power plants. Historically, these required large cooling reservoirs, millions of gallons, and exhaust ventilation stacks visible on the mountain surface. Access, 4 distinct portals A, B, C, D, capable of admitting heavy trucks and military convoys. Surface footprint. Despite being underground, Raven Rock has a massive surface support presence, including the site RT antenna farm, helipads, and visible security perimeters. 5.2 Camp Hero, Montauk, New York. Camp Hero offers a vital case study in the physical debris left by military bases. Often the subject of the Montauk Project conspiracy theories, its reality is documented in environmental remediation reports. Power infrastructure. Building P-203 housed 4 massive diesel generators. The exhaust manifolds were insulated with asbestos. Fuel storage. The facility relied on underground storage tanks holding 25,000 to 200,000 gallons of diesel fuel. Remediation. When the base was decommissioned, the removal of these hazardous materials, asbestos, diesel sludge, generated a massive paper trail of finding of fact and closeout project reports. Contrast, no such hazardous waste manifest exists for the deep interior of Mammoth Cave. If a generator plant of Camp Hero's scale existed inside Mammoth, the removal of asbestos and fuel tanks would have been a monumental, publicly visible industrial operation. Table 2, Infrastructural Signatures, Mammoth Cave vs. Hardened Bases. Pipe feature Pipe Mammoth Cave National Park Pipe Raven Rock / Camp Hero Verified Bases Pipe 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 Host Rock Pipe Limestone Soluble, Wet, Unstable Pipe Granite / Concrete Hard, Dry, Stable Pipe Ventilation Pipe Natural Barometric Breathing Pipe Air Filtration. Blast Valves. Forced air pipe power source pipe external grid. Small emergency leads pipe internal nuclear diesel plants. Cooling towers pipe fuel storage pipe non-environmental regs pipe massive 200k plus gallons. Pipelines pipe water source pipe cave rivers pollution vulnerable pipe internal reservoirs millions of gallons pipe surface trace pipe visitor center hiking trails pipe antenna farms. Helipads. Exhaust stacks pipe thermal sign pipe ambient cave temp 54 degrees Fahrenheit pipe industrial heat plume detectable biter pipe part 6 anomalous signals and theoretical evaluation. Beyond the verified history, this analysis must address the signals cited by theorists as evidence of ongoing covert activity. 6.1 The Banana Incident and Interpretive Plasticity. In May 2023, the NPS posted a photo of a banana in a Mammoth Cave passage with the caption Mammoth Cave is approximately 3.37 million bananas long. The conspiracy, online communities, specifically canon adherents, interpreted banana as code for minion or child, and the post as a signal that children had been liberated from the underground base. Dumb. Sociological analysis. This incident highlights the concept of interpretive plasticity, where benign data is forced to fit a pre-existing narrative. The lack of actual evidence, blast doors, soldiers, forces theorists to decode mundane social media posts as combs. Reality check. The passage shown was a standard tourist route. The banana for scale is a common internet meme. The disconnect between the intent, science communication, and the interpretation, covert signaling, is absolute. 6.2 Hydrology as a debunking mechanism. The strongest scientific argument against a secret base in Mammoth Cave is hydrology. The sinkhole plain. The land south of the park is a sinkhole plain. All water, sewage, and agricultural runoff from this area drains into the cave system. Dye tracing. Scientists have spent decades injecting fluorescent dyes into sinkholes to map the water flow. They have mapped the convergence of these streams into the underground rivers, Echo River, Styx, that flow through the cave and exit at springs on the Green River. The implication, a secret base would need to dispose of waste. If they dumped sewage or chemicals into the cave streams, it would immediately appear at the monitored springs or be detected by the dye tracing studies. If they tried to block the water, they would flood the cave and their own base. The connectivity of the aquifer makes concealment impossible. 6.3 Thermal infrared analysis. Remote sensing technology provides another layer of verification. The method, studies using ASTER and Landsat thermal bands map the surface temperature of the park. Caves show up as subtle anomalies, cool spots in summer, warm spots in winter, at the entrances. The base signature, an industrial facility underground generates heat thermodynamics. This heat must be vented to the surface. A 54 degrees Fahrenheit limestone ridge venting 80 degrees Fahrenheit or 100 degrees Fahrenheit exhaust air would appear as a blindingly bright hot spot on a thermal satellite image. No such unexplained thermal blooms have been documented in the unclassified scientific literature regarding the park. Part 7, Conclusion. The investigation into underground facilities at Mammoth Cave National Park reveals a narrative stratified by geological time, Cold War anxiety, and digital folklore. 1. Validated history. There is no question that Mammoth Cave was a component of the U.S. Strategic Defense Plan in the 1960s. The Audubon Avenue fallout shelter was a real, stocked facility intended to house citizens during a nuclear exchange. However, this facility was passive, crude, and ultimately doomed by the very geology that created the cave. The high humidity and natural ventilation rendered the shelter ineffective, leading to its abandonment. 2. The mechanism of myth. The persistence of the underground base legend is driven by the conflation of disparate facts. The 50,000-person capacity belongs to the Louisville mega cavern. The government road deal belongs to Idaho's Mammoth Cave. The underground city aesthetic belongs to Round Rock and Cheyenne Mountain. By grafting these attributes onto the vast, mysterious canvas of Mammoth Cave National Park, a compelling but historically inaccurate supernarrative is created. 3. The verdict of infrastructure. A comparison with verified military bases, Raven Rock, Camp Hero, exposes the absence of necessary infrastructure at Mammoth Cave. There are no massive diesel storage tanks, no asbestos-laden generator halls, no thermal exhaust plumes, and no secured perimeters blocking the 600,000 annual tourists. The anomalies present, seismic sensors and solar panels, are consistent with the park's transparent mission of scientific research and ecological preservation. Final assessment. Mammoth Cave's underground facility status as a historical artifact of the 1962 National Fallout Shelter Survey, amplified by linguistic confusion and the inherent mystery of the subterranean world. While the cave remains a geological wonder with miles of unexplored darkness, the evidence overwhelmingly indicates that these reaches are empty of human industry, occupied only by the silent, slow work of dissolving limestone.